Tom would go on hour-long rants about how Nicolas Cage is the world's best actor.
So she's stabbing people, and she's going over to this guy and scratching.
Dang.
They posted it to a Mexican restaurant page,
I guess.
and it went viral?
Hey, man.
That's awesome.
Internet's the internet, you know?
Why is guy?
Okay.
Hold up.
You need to rewind this.
Oh, that's Gorran.
We need to restart.
What up, renegades? It's Rilla.
Showtime. EJ.
We're on to the final chapter.
That's it. We made it to the end.
It's been,
A hell of a ride.
yes, it has. Ups, downs, clowns, frowns,
Laughs, tears,
beers, cheers.
jeers, cheers, and
Cheers?
beers.
Isn't that a TV show?
It was.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for being here. This is it. The final chapter. Chapter 8.
It's the final chapter.
That's good. That's good.
We got a shout out here, boy.
We do. Who's
Who's
it?
the shout out?
Roll the dice.
Nadia Opata. Thank
Come on down.
Harry Potter. Nadia Opata. Hey, yo.
All right.
Thank you for your support. Let's jump right in. This is the final chapter.
Sick, guys. Let's
Ren
finish it.
8.
Let's
Boom.
land this plane. Starting with a song?
With a track. We're the railroad.
I'm not mad at this.
I was sat in a cafe across from a strange French man in a suit.
Okay.
I had to decide over a 5-minute drink if this was the man that I was going to live with for the next year of my life. A week before, I'd been sat in the same
got
cafe
us.
with a Polish man.
At first,
My friend Luke had put me in touch.
I thought he was gonna rap this whole.
I would have
challenge.
totally been okay
That's
with
why I looked at you. I'm like, is he gonna rap this last
the
chapter?
whole chapter.
I was gonna lose my stice.
Okay, so we're learning
Okay.
about friend Luke here.
Me and my girlfriend had decided to move into separate houses in hopes it would fix our crumbling relationship. The guy seemed pretty chill online, and so I'd already agreed to move in with him. This was just a
Randomly.
little informal meet before we did. A few minutes in, I instantly regretted everything.
Oh, no.
He told me a story of how the week before he'd come home drunk, and he'd pissed all over his own living room, and was in hysterics about it. I laughed nervously.
You did that in college once, right?
Do what?
You did that in college once, right?
No, no.
Late night
I
trips
do
to
that
Mickey D's?
now. no, I don't.
Taking a sip of water as I imagined a future of watching Netflix shows near a carpet that stank of piss.
Ugh.
He then went on to tell me a story of how this girl that he'd liked had rejected his advances. So he'd, in his own words, grabbed her by the pussy and she slapped him. He wasn't sure if it was going to work.
That's a little too real. That's a little too TRUM pie.
I'm sorry. I just didn't expect him to say that.
I didn't either. Just
Okay, is Ren about to like, do time after killing this dude? Or
probably. I mean, we definitely would.
moves in with this guy.
Yeah, randomly from online source, by the way.
Instantly regrets it. Talks about
Grabbing people
oh my lord,
in places.
grabbing women.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. Play this
Work out
shit.
between them. I was certain it wasn't going to work out between them. I didn't laugh this time. I made an excuse and I left.
Yeah.
When I got home, I messaged him, making up a lie that me and my girlfriend had patched things up and she'd be moving with me instead.
Smart move.
I had a week to find a new roommate. I was, for all intents and purposes, a loud little bugger. I'd often spend unhealthy amounts of time making beats, so the person that I moved in with needed to be able to tolerate noise.
This is so relatable to me because one of my college roommates, shout out to you, Kyle, played beats and made beats constantly. And it was like late night and he didn't have headphones on sometimes. And I'm trying to sleep and bro's bumping beats. I mean, they were good. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, dude, I got a 7 a.m., 8 a.m. test tomorrow.
Brutal.
It was pretty rough.
Brutal.
I found this Facebook group called Brighton Bands of Musicians and I posted on it. It went something like this. Hi, I'm a noisy person and I'm looking
Hi.
for another noisy person to live with. Enter the Frenchman. He'd moved from France in hopes of kickstarting his music.
Yes! Romaine lettuce is here, baby.
Let's go.
Romaine
This
XXL.
chapter is already going to be the best one.
I love it.
Music career.
The big
He
push.
was working in the
Yep.
restaurant and busking on the streets whenever he had time. He was, for the better part of the word, eccentric, and at first I couldn't quite place him. The bar was set extremely low by the carpet-pissing sex offender, though.
Yeah,
so
no
the French
shit.
man could have probably told me he was part
The
of an
French
extreme
man.
terrorist organisation, and I'd probably said, Great,
Great,
mate, when can you move in? The house was only meant for two, but in true cheapskate style, we found a third housemate called Tom, who was probably one of the funniest people I've ever met. Tom would go on hour-long rants about how Nicolas Cage is the world's best actor.
That's some shit I would do.
Oh, Nicolas Cage.
I'd just get messed up. Be like, all right, listen, we're gonna talk about why Nightmare on Elm Street is the best horror franchise. Just go. I love it.
The bunny back in the box.
Nicolas Cage is
And he
good.
makes a compelling case too.
Yeah, I agree.
Ghost
Nicolas
Rider,
Cage
baby.
rules.
That French man was Romain Caesar. We'd go on to form a band called The Big Push, and he'd become one of my
Love
closest
the Big
friends.
Push, man.
The second week we moved in together, it was his birthday. So me and Tom decided to gaffer tape about 50 baguettes and bunches of garlics to the walls and ceilings to decorate.
You know what gaffer tape is?
No, what's that?
So in film production, gaffer tape is the really high quality dense tape that you use to like put things up on walls and
Like
you know.
microphones and cords and stuff?
Yeah, if you need to.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the times we would use it to gaff down like cables.
Yeah.
And if you need to go along the wall and you don't want them to fling everywhere,
Yeah.
gaff tape because it's extremely strong.
Oh,
I have a bunch of gaff tape literally in that room.
cool.
It's pretty sweet.
You're a cool
Great.
dude.
It was
The more you know.
2016 and political correctness hadn't come into full effect. He still didn't think it was very funny. My energy was only improving during this time, although progress was slow. The doctor had recommended I do a second transplant to speed things up. I returned to LA for the second time with my close friend Saran and went through the motions again.
Another
Eventually,
cool name,
I'd
man.
switched to their sister
I
clinic
know.
in Frankfurt, where I entered one of the more unusual periods of my life.
Okay.
The
So
UK
you went from the clinic in LA and transferred to the one in Frankfurt because it's
Yeah.
closer to home.
Closer to home.
Got it.
And he looked like that.
No way.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's literally Ren.
Is that a great value Johnny Depp? What is that?
$2.99.
has border regulations on certain
Roll back.
medications and supplements. Some I shouldn't have been taking
Wait.
back with me.
Is that Johnny Depp?
Yes, dude. You didn't know? Yes, you're correct.
No.
I remember
Young-
fashioning a
young
hidden
Johnny Depp.
compartment in my suitcase
Oh, that's
where I would
embarrassing.
smuggle IV bags full of various nutrients and immune modulating drugs over the border. I did this a few times. One drug, filgrastim, was often given to AIDS or cancer
Filgrastim.
patients with low neutrophil
That was my high school teacher's last name. John Filgastrom.
counts. On my tests, my neutrophils were always outside of range on the lower side, so the injections would theoretically raise them.
Wow.
The issue was I was still broke. I don't think
Yeah.
the doctor realised how broke. I was meant to pay for private nurse to administer the drips, but I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So without telling the doctor, I taught myself how to administer an IV watching YouTube tutorial
Oh,
videos.
no. Oh, no.
First, it was
Wow.
very
Ouch.
messy. I
Yeah.
messed up a lot of veins trying to get the catheter to stay in. There was a lot of blood,
No.
but eventually I got the hang of it. I'd be sitting in
Okay.
the living room watching One Punch Man while an IV bag
Yes.
dripped slowly into my veins, and day by day I got stronger and stronger. The issue was I started noticing my food intolerances getting
Uh-oh.
worse. The stem cells had improved my pain, energy, clarity of thought, but it worsened my ability to tolerate food, something I later learned was caused by MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome.
Wow.
Some other stories also started circulating online groups of people getting far worse after the stem cell transplant. I can't say that this didn't shape me. As more time elapsed, I learned of legal cases that were opened against the clinic for malpractice.
Oh, God.
The clinic in Beverly Hills eventually shut its doors. It was hard to know how to feel about this. The doctor had been my saving grace. He'd pulled me out of a half existence, but I could see where people's frustrations were coming from. As the clinic grew in popularity, I think its resources became stretched and its communication became worse. Nonetheless, that man will always remain the third angel in my tale, and I'll always be grateful.
So he saved his life
Yeah.
temporarily,
But
and
they
then
lost
crap
funding.
happened, and the whole thing broke
Yeah,
down.
they lost funding. Sucks.
It's hard for me to definitively recommend stem cells. I believe it's a gamble. Some got worse, but they did actually really help me. They didn't cure me, and some of my symptoms got worse, but they allowed me to be an active member of society again.
Hey, man, he'll take
And
it,
that was
right?
huge for me.
Yeah.
Better than dying.
He's like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at least, you're gambling a little bit. 4.
A few more months
That was
passed.
awesome.
My girlfriend had moved to Australia, but she was being very distant
she
with me
did
and
move.
rarely
She did
answering
move.
calls. She broke up with me on Christmas Day while I was visiting my mum. I took it very badly.
You don't do that. You don't do that. You don't break up with someone on Christmas Day visiting their mom.
Can you imagine opening up your stockings and then 5 minutes later you're dumped?
Can you imagine opening a stocking to a piece of paper that says we're breaking up?
Yeah, dude. Can you imagine if you got coal and then you got broken?
Now,
I am
If you
beside
open-
myself.
if you open J. Cole, Now that's a different story. Hey.
Whoa.
It was also symbolically the end of one chapter and the start of a
No,
next.
but that's messed up.
Despite our
But, like,
difficulties, I'm still grateful for the time we
that was
shared.
for the best.
There's
Yeah.
always two sides to every story, and I don't imagine it was easy being with someone who was
Right.
tormented by my health
Exactly.
problems as I was during the time.
That's tough.
It's tough.
I returned back to Brighton, and then I started living for the first time in
Okay.
years, really living. Me, Romain, and Tom would throw parties nearly every night.
Huh.
I didn't drink or do drugs, but I was high on being able to participate. I
Yeah.
felt like I
Hell
was living
yeah.
in Brighton for the first time in my life. I was able to walk around, to take in the city, to live.
Here you go.
I also started getting the attention of women.
Oh.
During my teen years,
I mean,
I wasn't
yeah.
the best
I
looking.
mean, look at
I
your
mean,
bod,
look at it.
bro.
I,
Yeah.
Dude.
He's like,
Yeah.
Popeye.
If I wasn't a married lad, I would be a married lad. If you know what I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like Popeye the Tick Man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sick,
Yeah.
but I'm ripped.
Yeah.
And I was a bit awkward. During my early 20s, I was so sick I rarely went out. So this was new for me, and I threw myself in head first.
There you go.
I realised that I really like pretty girls, and pretty girls apparently like boys who make music. A lot of
Yes.
nights I'd go out
Yes,
by
they do.
myself around Brighton and end up meeting a whole bunch of beautiful women. One night I ended up breaking into the Hilton Hotel with a girl that I just met. We managed to get onto the roof, but we were chased down the flights of stairs by security. We ended up having sex on the beach at 2 in the morning while the
Oh
tide
my
came in.
God.
The parties we throw would get crazier
That's
and
a movie,
crazier.
baby.
Ugh.
There'd be times where everyone was half naked by the end of the night. I find myself in strange situations where I was having sex on a living room sofa with two girls while some random dude sat smoking a joint on a nearby table.
You're living, bro.
I noticed this guy who was a friend of Romain's who kept passing out on our sofa.
Hell yeah.
One time he woke up covered in scratches from this Mexican girl who had been telling the stories the night before of all the people she'd stabbed.
What?
This guy was...
Okay.
Hold up.
You need to rewind this.
Oh, that's Gorran.
We need to restart. Yeah.
No way.
Okay.
Goran's part of the Big Push as well. He's the guitarist. And
All right.
So
Okay.
he's on a living room sofa with two girls while some random dude is smoking a joint in the couch.
Yeah.
This random dude, who is it? No
Who
other
knows? Oh.
than Goran.
sat
Okay.
smoking a joint on a nearby table.
He's smiling.
I noticed this guy who was a friend of Romain's who kept passing out on our sofa. One time he woke up covered in scratches from this Mexican girl who had been telling the stories the night before of all the people she'd stabbed.
Damn.
So she's stabbing people and she's going over to this guy and scratching.
Dang.
That's some cat scratch fever if you ever heard it, man. That's wild.
This guy was Kuykendall. He sang like Bob Dylan, and he looked like he'd fallen out of a punk rock band.
Yes,
I
he
liked him.
does.
Me, Romain, and Gorran were all musicians, and naturally we started jamming together. I remember the first time something clicked. We were at Gorran's house with an Australian girl I'd been seeing and her friends. The night before, she'd gotten drunk and tried to strip me naked during an open mic night at the Fiddler's Elbow. I was pretty willing, and we both ended up in our underwear being kicked out in fits of laughter. We decided to start working out 3-part harmonies together. We figured out a cover of Octopus's Garden by the Beatles. And not to blow our own horns, but it sounded fucking brilliant. I remember someone walking past the house and hearing from outside, and they started to clap. Eventually, the three of us
Wow.
would busk on the streets together. We all busked separately, so it made sense. Back then, I'd occasionally drag a kick and a snare drum out with me in a wheelbarrow, and I'd drum while Gorran and Romain played and sang. We would always have people come up to us and they'd ask for our band name, and we never had an answer. We came up with this genius idea of forming a band.
Genius.
One of us said that we should be called the Three Hats because there was
Genius.
3 of us, and sometimes we wore hats. One of us said, nah, that's shit. Eventually, we settled on the Big Push, and we got tighter and tighter.
They were almost called the Three Hats.
The 3 hats.
The Three Hats.
The 3 broomsticks.
I think the Big Push is better.
If I were to form a band, it would be called Galactica.
Broomstick? Galactica Broomstick?
Broomstick Galactica.
That's a song, actually.
Yeah.
Broomstick- It's some synthesizer song.
Yeah.
As my energy increased, I was able to do more and more. We play about 5 nights a week in various pubs and bars in Brighton for shit money. On Saturday, we'd get out onto the streets and go busking. There was just one problem. I was proper shit at drumming. The universe eventually provided
I'll
us
go.
with a handsome bearded Irishman, and everything fell into place.
Irishman.
I loved those boys. We were in truest sense a rock and roll band. We got banned from playing at a few venues because we'd occasionally get carried away and break a bit too many things on stage. I got a lot of bills for microphone stands or charges for paint jobs where I'd sprawled the Big Push over the walls in permanent marker pen. Life was a bit like a movie. My ambition at the time wasn't to be in the greatest band of all time or to have any kind of success. I was just so relieved to be alive and play.
Yeah, seriously.
So every day felt like a victory.
I'm liking this chapter, man.
Yeah, this is
Despite
good.
this,
This is a good
I was still
chapter.
carrying a lot of symptoms with me.
Oh no.
The pain in my legs never stopped. The buzzing in my feet never relented. My vision was still blurry. I'd still get days where I was so foggy that it was hard to communicate. One day after a gig with the Big Push, being overstimulated triggered a very temporary jolt back into psychosis, and I found myself lying on a table in the pub, repeating the same sentence over and over again for about 10 minutes,
Shocked again.
while surrounded by a very concerned group of onlookers. I came to, in tears, and I quickly left in embarrassment. If I didn't stick to my diet of about 5 different things, I'd be trapped in bed again, but it was okay. I was willing to hurt if it meant I could participate in life again, and I intended to live the fuck out of it. I met this beautiful Spanish girl one night after playing at a local pub, and I fell instantly in love. She had this beautiful blonde curly hair and was wearing dungarees, and I was enamored with her from the first moment that I saw her.
Dungaree.
She didn't stab anyone, right?
I don't think
Like,
so.
We should
Hopefully not.
probably do a
Probably like check in on that.
background
Yeah,
check.
yeah, yeah.
And she didn't make it easy, which made me like her even more. I'd write her
Hard to get.
poetry, invite her to shows, and attempt to be funny. She knew me as the local slut, which didn't really make things very easy.
Oh,
So with time, she could see that I genuinely cared about her,
The
and I did,
local
a lot. One time we snuck into a cinema together, and I proceeded to climb onto what I thought was the stage below the screen to put on a show for her as she sat alone in the aisles cheering. What I didn't know was that stage wasn't a stage, it was a 6-foot drop. I confidently put my feet on thin air, and then I fell, smashing my face onto the corner of a railing on the way down, seeing a flash of white light, and regaining consciousness with her rolling around in fits of laughter on the floor.
wow.
She was intelligent, creative, unusual, and beautiful. I carried a lot of trauma with me into that relationship. Relationships generally didn't feel safe for me. She was briefly diagnosed with BPD, which later turned out to be a misdiagnosis, and I had major trust issues from my last relationship, which had grown into commitment issues. It was a bit of a recipe for disaster, but we loved each other very intensely and very dysfunctionally until we couldn't. I wish I'd been able to surrender. It was a bit Sid and Nanci, very dramatic to say the least, and I won't get into it for her sake. But it was beautiful, and I loved her very much. It taught me a lot. I learned that the echoes of the past had shaped me into something that I struggled to be. I envied the people who could jump into relationships and feel safe or content. I wondered if it was because I had to watch my mum and dad fighting till their marriage crumbled when I was a kid. If it was because I'd learned as a child that I had to be independent because external love was inconsistent. I wondered if it was because I'd been too late to save Joe. I wondered if it was because I was forced to live most of my adult life in isolation. I wondered if it was to do with my past relationships. I didn't know, but I felt confused and I felt angry with myself. I knew I wanted to surrender to love, to feel truly worthy of it, but every time I tried, I felt discontent and unsettled, like the security of love was something I wanted to escape. The thought of ending up in a white picket fence house with my perfect family felt like prison. After 8 long years of being tethered to a body in pain, I wanted to be liberated from any sort of attachment. Any sort of predictability of the future after a life of torturous monotony made my stomach feel like I'd swallowed cinder blocks. When I felt someone's love, I had to fight the urge to run and keep moving, but paradoxically still desperately wanted to be loved. And I loved to love. And I loved her. That discontent was something that stuck with me, and it hasn't made relationships easy. Around 2018, I'd reconnect with Sam. He was in his 20s now, so I felt far less weird about hanging out with a teenage boy. During this time, we wrote a few songs together. Blind Eyed, What Went Wrong, and Same Old Situation. All bangers, by the way. It was April, and we were shooting a video for What Went Wrong. We were using my friend Josh's car, and there was a scene where we needed a smashed up bonnet. But it went outside of the budget we had to pay for the video, so me and Sam decided to go busking to raise the money. I promise what follows is the truth. We never rehearsed Blind Eyed live before, but while we were out on the street, I turned to him and I asked if we should play it. I started playing the first chord that made sense without even thinking. It started in B minor in this kind of reggae way that was totally different to the original recording. Somehow, it was totally fucking magic. The whole street stopped. Sam was hitting notes and runs that seemed outside of the reach of a mere mortal. Luckily, Sam Perry Falvey, who films the videos, was with us, and he captured the whole thing on camera.
Hell yes.
Before this moment, I kind of surrendered to the fact I probably wouldn't have a career in music again. I was doing it for me. I was doing it to celebrate being alive. The week after the video shoot, me and Sam decided to go busking again because it had felt so good. Someone filmed us covering a version of Vera Hall's Trouble So Hard.
Look at Sam's fit, man.
I know. Those overalls. Unmatched.
posted it to
Wow.
a Mexican restaurant page on Facebook. It was the first thing that
what?
I'd done since returning to the land of the living that went viral, and it went very viral.
Hold up. They posted it to a Mexican restaurant page
I guess.
and it went viral?
Hey, man.
That's awesome.
Internet's the internet, you know?
The internet's wild.
Wild.
Started being shared everywhere by millions of people. 2 weeks after that, another cover of us performing was circulating the internet. That went viral too. By the time we released the busking version of Blind Eyed, the internet went crazy.
Oh, yeah.
My social media following started exploding. People like Elton John were talking about us on the radio. People would fly in from all over the world just to
Dang.
watch us perform on the street. By the end
Wow.
of summer 2018, we were shutting down entire high streets because of the volume of people coming to watch us perform. There was something magic about the synergy of me and Sam that stopped people in their tracks. We were being tagged in videos from all over the world of people listening to Blind Eyed. People were listening from war zones, from rocket launch sites, from deep in jungles. It was surreal, and it was incredibly affirming. It was a second chance, and I didn't think I'd get a second chance. The shared out with Sam was special. A lot happened after that. More love, more heartbreak, more health complications, more healing, more setbacks, more parties, more medications, sold out shows, frustrations with the music industry, betrayals, theft, friends lost to addiction. My health would take me on more journeys into foreign countries, #1 albums, awards, a pandemic, meeting idols, making money, losing money.
My
But I'll
God.
save all that for another time. It's fitting that this story ends here. Trouble So Hard by Vera Hall has always resonated with me very deeply. She was the daughter of a slave, navigating a hostile 1940s America, something I'll never be able to relate to. The pain and simplicity of the line, "Don't nobody know my troubles but God," was one that seemed universal to all struggles. And it was a line I was always deeply connected to. If there is a God, I want to thank you for giving me the resilience to be able to sit down here and to tell my story today. I hope it's far from over, and I hope that this is just chapter 1. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the space to share my story with you. For everybody still in the dark, trust, hope, and dare to dream that you can get out of it too. I love you all, and thank you for supporting me like you have.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh,
No sound. Trust so hard.
I was looking forward to a song.
What was the song that he said? Trust.
Trust.
I gotta
yeah.
get that song, man.
Get the song,
'Cause
man.
I thought he was gonna play the song.
To be able to sit down here
Yeah, no, I
and
think
to
it
tell
says-
my story today.
Yeah.
I hope it's far from over.
Oh no,
And
no.
I hope that this
Sorry.
is just
It's
chapter
more.
1. Thank you, everybody, for giving me the space to
Before
share
that.
my story.
I gotta get that song. Trouble So Hard.
Trouble So
by
Hard by
Vera
Vera.
Hall.
Write that down. Write that down.
Write that down. I don't have paper. I'll write it down over here. Trouble So Hard. So chapter 8, baby. Eric,
Well,
what are your thoughts, my friend?
I don't know. Obviously positive finish, right?
Yeah, thankfully.
I want all that other stuff. He said more vacations, more heartbreak, more money, losing
I
money,
know.
making money. He's like, that's for another time.
I was like, it's the
um,
time, bro.
Is this gonna be like chapters 1 through 8, part 1,
Part 1,
and there's gonna be chapters 1 through 8,
9
part
through
2.
300 of Ren.
It was great, dude. It was great.
I know he's still fighting with his stuff.
Yeah, because didn't you say in March of this year he flew to Mexico for more
and
stem
he was
cell
doing-
treatments?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's when he did that one show.
Yeah.
The Dead
Yep.
Wax.
Yep.
And so he was able to do that. Man, he has done
He lived
so
a life.
much. He's had a crazy life.
I'm really happy that he had this moment of like,
Right.
hell yeah. Like I'm going back in. Like,
Like
I'm alive.
music has brought me back to being
Yeah.
who I am.
Yeah.
You know, what I believe in.
And what he said too, he's like, I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I was just
High on the
on
activity.
on
Participation.
high on the fact that I'm there.
Yeah.
High in the participation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's like, just the fact that I get to like do this.
Yeah. And it's really cool that him finding the big push is literally
Yeah.
just an internet post. And
Yep.
then some French guy shows up.
He's like, yeah. That was
And
good.
then Romain, who has
Yeah.
a friend, and then the big push formed. So
Awesome.
Well,
Hey, thanks for being with us on this journey.
this has been a Ren chapters 1 through 8.
Yeah.
It's been a grind.
Been a
It's been
grind.
a ride.
It's been fun.
But we love y'all.
Yeah, we do.
Hit the
Thanks for
like,
being
hit
with
the
us.
subscribe.
Bye.
Join us on Patreon if you want. But we'll see you in the next one.